Two or three of his old friends in Paris started immediately new business links. But within 3 or 4 months, the fellow went into cough and temperature, and there was great emaciation and rapid fall in weight. The fellow goes to bed and dies. Straight he goes to pulmonary phthisis and he dies. Because it is his mental condition that was saving him from death. And whenever we cure the mental condition without understanding the stage of the case, there is a cure, total cure of his insanity, and a rapid breakup of the physical system and a sure death. So, whenever there is a case of insanity or fear or semi-insanity, always take your own time before you decide to administer the drug in sufficient potency. Try to understand if he is in a stage of curability or not. If he has crossed the stage of curability, then the indicated remedy kills him as surely as anything. It is your duty to see that the indicated remedy is not given to the fellow at all. This is one aspect of chronic disease treatment. Brahma, at what o'clock we will take a break?
À quelle heure?
4? About 4 o'clock. Tomorrow? The problems of the medical field. That is about cancer. Can it be cured is one question. According to the present understanding and standards of homeopathy, cancer is incurable by any existing systems of therapy, for the simple reason that the stage, cancer indicates a stage and not a disease. The previous stage of which is incurable, and unless the constitution crosses the possibility of curability, there is no cancerous tissue formation on the physical plane. This is the truth of it. Until the medical science transcends its present limitations and finds a method to cure the constitutions even after a stage of incurability, until then the real cure of cancer is not possible. If anyone says that he has cured cancer, such a cure is wonderfully possible in homeopathy, and a better cure than that is possible in homeopathy, because it is not a cure but a postponement. We can have wonderful case examples of a total postponement of the whole condition, better than in any system of treatment. A true homeopath cannot deceive himself by calling it a cure. Of course, the party concerned or his relatives and friends may believe that it is a cure, and you can inform the party also that it is cure for certain moral reason. But at the same time, remember that it is not a cure. This is the exact situation of the present stage of medical science about cancer. If you are prepared to call it by the name, only by the name postponement, I show on my records many miracles made cancer. A single dose of Lycopodium 30 has cured, between quotations, not normally, a case of epithelial cancer on the right leg, on the bone, and the lady was living a normal life for 5 years, and she believed, and her husband believed, and everyone believed that she was totally and radically cured. But she died of the same disease at the same place once again. It was only a single dose of lycopodium 30 that made the total postponement. Now you can carefully read the few lines written about cancer by Kent under the heading of lycopodium in his lectures on material. You will understand that every letter is literally true. Another case was having a cancer of the esophagus, not able to swallow even a drop of water, hospitalized for 4 weeks, and fluids being supplied and discharged in that state. I was asked to do something. I could pick up the drug that was indicated for him when he was not a cancerous patient. That's the only way in which we have to proceed in homeopathy. Because if we direct our treatment to cancer, we do an additional harm to the patient. It is not for the cancer, but for the person we have to select the remedy. And when we make a defaultation of the very first principle of homeopathy, we are not required there in such condition. So I selected a remedy for him according to his previous medical history. It was alumina, and I selected 6C, which gave him some relief in 6 hours. He was able to swallow some drops of water. After 2 days, he was able to swallow some more water. And the next day, he was able to swallow milk. And after a 2 months treatment with alumina 6, repeated 1 dose a day until he began to swallow, and then stopped. And alumina 30 repeated whenever he was worse, and he was completely normal, and he ate his normal diet, and he attended dinners and banquets. He believed that he was cured, and he picked up in weight and health, and his wife and his children and grandchildren believed that he was cured. And he said, for the present, I am completely cured. So, can I have some arrangements about the distribution of the property to the children, or can I postpone the matter? I sat with the fellow separately, lonely, without anyone else. Asked him to make the arrangements for the property immediately and eat whatever he likes to eat within a few days, and mentally get prepared for the end. And just after 48 hours, I received a telephone that he was sinking without any suffering. Within half a minute, I received the same telephone that he passed away. So in between, there was a complete period of recovery for about 6 months. If you can call it a cure, it is only a gross deception. A commercial homeopath may boast it as a cure, but let us not do it. Why cancer cannot be cured is only after the reaching the stage of incurability, the physical tissues undergo a change which we call the cancerous tissue. For example, the mental symptoms disappear. The fellow becomes docile and normal, and then he manifests the cancerous tissue. And another reason is cancer is a condition and not a change in the tissue. The change in the physical tissue is the result of the cancer, and it is not the cancer. Cancer exists with the person and not a location in the body. Cancer never belongs to any tissue. It belongs to the person and constitution. These are the hard facts that the physician has to face. And the location of the cancerous tissue is only the last and final change that takes place in the constitution. And when we remove the tissue from that place, still cancer exists with the person. Therefore, it is found elsewhere. That is what the allopath calls secondaries. It is neither secondary nor tertiary, but the disease exists with the person. We are hunting the shadow. So, there should be a total re-understanding of the whole setup and many new dimensions and discoveries in the field of medicine before we can boast of a true cure of cancer. If radiotherapy were called to be a cure, we can call torture a cure. We can call mutilation a cure. A torture and a mutilation is better than radiotherapy, because we know what we are doing. We are leading the patient to a continuous torture before he dies by exposing to radiotherapy, any cobalt therapy or any such thing, because it is the tissue that we are torturing, whereas the disease lies with the person. Crime exists somewhere and punishment applied somewhere else. And finally,
Et finalement,
we can do the best in homeopathy in the last stages of a cancer patient. We can select a remedy for pain killing, which can be done only in such cases. And the patient can have a very painless and happy duration of his last days or months. This is about the present knowledge of cancer. And if there are real cures, we are all ready to go and learn. So I make an open appeal if someone knows a real cure, because immediately we want to go and learn and do something useful. This is about cancer. Permanent way? That's very good. Let us all learn it. Yes, cases of cancer are cured. And no one knows why and how they are cured. But cancer is incurable. Because the doctors might have regularized the process and made it popular by now, if it was medicine that cured such cases. Because permanent radical cures are there on record, world records. For example, in the previous century, a wonderful fellow in Russia called Gregory Rasputin, in spite of the fact he was a worst scoundrel in some respects, he has made permanent and radical cures of cancer on records. And 7 such cases are on records cured by him. And when he was asked to cure an 8th case, he could not do it. He said he did not know how he cured it. Such cures are there in every country and every nation. In what way the cancer patients are benefited by it? What we wrongly call miracles are always there. But we want a method to tackle.
Now, 10, 12 years,
Yes.
and it seems very correct so far.
Yes, it is progressive, running on good lines, but we have to wait and see for the result. No hard and fast rule we can say like that. But
We just have to wait.
yeah, we have to wait. Visualization. And another thing, as a homeopath, when I am questioned about cancer, I can only answer one thing. 100 out of 100 patients who are treated from their childhood exclusively in scientific homeopathy, they die a natural death and there is no record of cancer at all. This is my sure answer as a homeopath. But if anyone thinks that it is a great loss of prestige for the doctor to cure a case before it has become cancer, I can't help. Because human welfare is more valuable than prestige. We need not have the prestige of having cured a cancer. But homeopathy gives 10% cure of what we call a precancerous condition, which can be detected very easily and the patient treated not in a special way but only according to the ordinary procedure of a homeopathic treatment. This is what I know about cancer. We will try to understand what is the undercurrent disease or susceptibility which we are speaking these 2 days. Yesterday I explained that there is an undercurrent disease which exists without any suffering or trouble or the name of a disease, which exists only as the susceptibility of any disease. It is about that undercurrent disease that homeopathy is great, bringing to the notice of humanity that such a disease exists and bringing it to light and the method of curing it. These are the specialities of homeopathy, and no other system till now has the credit of explaining this aspect. In the first case, whenever there is a skin eruption to anyone, it indicates that there was something wrong in the procedure of the fellow, that he or she has basically defaulted about the procedures, essential procedures of life. Nature produced a period of atonement or purification to make the person free from the defaultation, from the trouble of defaultation. So, whenever we have committed something awful against our life principle, whenever we misbehave with the basic necessities of life, that is food, drink, rest, work, sleep and sex. These are the aspects that maintain us, and nature demands certain amount of scientific behavior which the scriptures called good behavior, which the scientist can call a systematic way of doing things, which the ethical fellow can call it ethics. Whenever we default and misbehave with one or two or many of these aspects, it has its own impact upon the health, so that the matter in our body conditions the force, and matter and force condition the mind, and immediately there is the reaction to create freedom to man, and the vital force reacts violently and it tries to purify the whole vehicle. In trying to do so, it brings to the physical plane the dangerous effects that were there on the higher plane. As a result of which, we have some eruption or some trouble to the skin or other. And this was very simple when mankind was comparatively more healthy. There was a time when humanity was like animals and therefore as healthy as the animals. There was a time when humanity never defaulted. Just like animals, they too ate only when they were hungry. They too drank only when they were thirsty. And they never spent sleepless nights for club life or something which they called important. And then mankind was also as healthy as the animals. Disease was an exception and health was a general rule. And whenever there was a defaultation, it was an exception. And the fellow immediately had a skin eruption. And as long as he was having eruption on the skin, he was understood as undergoing the process of purification. That's the reason why they asked him not to go to the shrine room with others to pray. If you go through a few lines in the book of Leviticus in Old Testament, a fellow having skin trouble was prohibited to enter the temple until it was cured, and he was not allowed to make any attempt to cure it. The first attempt to cure it from outside, that is to shorten the process of the skin trouble, that gave the first chronic sickness to man. Immediately the trouble travelled from physical to the energy plane, from matter to force and from force to mind. It travelled backwards. Purification was obstructed and man became impure of mind, force and matter. To cure it, it was simple in the old days. But as the process continued, we produced generations after generations doing the same thing, trying to suppress the skin trouble and make our skin nice. That is, giving more value to skin than to ourselves. So, we began to believe that our skin is more valuable than ourselves. And 20th century is no exception. In spite of our great advancement into science, we still have many horrible, unscientific and primitive traits. For example, believing that our skin is more valuable than ourselves. As a result of which we have not less than 1,000 remedies that cure our skin daily, that keep our skin nice. And the history of a deterioration to thousands of years gave the present horrible condition of disease called Sora. This is what is called this undercurrent disease in every one of us. And it causes susceptibility to every disease that exists around us. What we call contagion and what we call infection, they are possible only to those who are having this susceptibility disease. Still there are people who do not have this susceptibility disease and they are invulnerable, they are invincible and they cannot be affected by any infection or contagion. If the air we breathe contains all sorts of infections, then how is it possible that all of us are not dying? The theory of the microbe and the theory of virus, they stand as signatures of human ignorance in 20th century. Because there is no answer to this question. Why we are not affected by all the infections we breathe in? The theory of infection is correct, but it is not correct that everyone can be affected. Nature has its own procedure to save us, and even the malarial parasite cannot attack the human fellow directly. It has to make friends with the mosquito. That too, a type of mosquito, Anopheles. That too, only a lady, because temptation came only always from woman. The malarial parasite has to go and approach Madam Anopheles. And even the
Understand.
affected mosquito, unless it injects into your blood directly, you cannot get the infection. Even though you eat or drink in water a mosquito which is affected by malarial parasite, you will never get it unless you are injected by the mosquito. So there are many conditions that are to be fulfilled before we get an infection. Nature protects us through 1,000 methods and 1,001 methods. It's not so easy for infection to come and attack every fellow. So infection attacks only those that are susceptible. Others, there are people who are rendering service to those that are affected. For example, if you go into the slum areas of some countries like India, see how the cholera affected areas, when people go there and render service to the cholera affected person, those who render service, they are never affected. What happened to our theory of contagion and infection? Why Mr. X is affected and Mr. Y is not affected? The blind and ignorant answer is resistance. Is it resistance or ignorance? If it is resistance, why can't you develop in others? If we know how to develop this resistance, why can't we develop this resistance in everyone? As an answer, we have the vaccination theory. So the whole thing went into a wrong track. This is about the disease of susceptibility. For the first time, Hahnemann explained us that there exists a disease called Swara, and that it is it settles in a person only when there is an attempt to suppress any skin disease. This is one aspect. A second aspect is when